Awesome. Well, thanks for coming today, guys. Here to talk about BC Marine Trails and mostly about our stewardship initiatives, how you guys can get involved, and more so how individual recreationists and visitors can get involved. So generally at BC Marine Trails, our mission is to work with First Nations and stakeholders to build, protect, and promote a public network of marine trails, allowing recreational navigation of the BC coast. And most of what we're here to talk about today is the piece with minimal impact on the environment. So definitely ensuring that we're not only visiting these places, but also visiting in a way that is either neutral or what I'm really pushing for is actually positive, which is definitely a big step up from certain practices that currently happen with campers and various recreationists. So our main public offering and the way that we kind of disseminate a lot of these programs is through our map. So essentially the BC Marine Trails map currently has over 1,500 sites of day use sites, launch sites, campsites, and is pretty well the go-to resource for trip planning for mostly paddling, also coastal hiking and boaters as well. Definitely trying to push more into kind of other demographics, but mostly is kind of kayakers and paddleboarders right now. As I open up our map, did that screen share move over as well, or are we still stuck on the presentation? Okay, awesome. So at our organization, we have kind of three different working groups. One is trails development, which is a bit more obvious. That's the development of our map. That's infrastructure like tent platforms, pit toilets, bear caches, that sort of thing. We also have a First Nations engagement team, and our goal is to have every single site on our map approved by the nation whose territory it is within. And what that looks like is engaging with and working directly with nations to essentially say, hey, this is where paddlers have historically been going within your territory. These are all the sites we are aware of, working with the nation to approve those, or in the case of areas that might be more culturally sensitive, working with the nation to find alternatives. There is a bit of a safety piece as well, where we don't want too large of stretches up and down the coast without a site, obviously for emergencies and just for safe traveling distances. So working with that kind of caveat with nations to find the best areas within their territory to direct recreation. And what that looks like as well is working with some nations in certain instances that might be interested in economic development in terms of recreation and tourism, working with them to apply for grants for infrastructure, working to promote paddling within their territory. So through our map, if you click in to get site information in planning your trip, a House It is a great example, and you click into one of the sites. You'll get all of your kind of relevant camping information, stuff about the landing, camp, infrastructure that is present. And when we have engaged with the First Nation and they have information that they specifically want to get out to paddlers as well, we'll share that directly through the map. So in the case of the House It, you can see a message here in welcoming you to the House It Hahuthli. We want to continue our ancestral responsibility to steward and monitor the lands and waters that support our people. In the case of the House It, they also charge a stewardship fee. So to do this, the House It Nation requests a $15 per person per day fee for recreating within their territory, and then a link to their website. So as nations move to more of a stewardship fee model up and down the coast, and a lot of times to promote stewardship programs, guardian programs, while they might have the infrastructure and the capacity to implement that program, they don't necessarily have the comms capacity to be able to actually reach the people that it is relevant to. So we really act as the middleman as well, the bridge to get that information from the nation, in this instance, to paddlers, to hikers, to paddleboarders. As they're using this map, through that process as well, they're getting this information directly from the nation and then being directed to those stewardship fees when they are applicable. So that's kind of a general intro to, we'll be back on the map later to talk through more of our stewardship related activities, but just kind of a general intro of what our resource is, how people use us, and then how the First Nations piece fits in as well. Obviously, we're here today to talk more about environmental stewardship, but you can't really talk about that without involving First Nations as well, as a lot of stewardship guardian programs evolve across the coast. And obviously, respectful recreation extends far beyond just respect for the environment and the site that we're visiting. Okay, you guys are back to seeing the presentation? Okay, perfect. So in terms of our environmental stewardship, that reaches over kind of a few different categories. Where BC Marine Trails started with stewardship was mostly just collaborative cleanups. So feet on the ground initiatives with volunteers, partner organizations for things like marine debris cleanups and invasive species pulls. But kind of as the organization and our environmental stewardship team evolved, we realized that there was tons of organizations up and down the coast doing this at a much larger scale and with much more dedicated teams than us. Obviously, we have a bit of a different mandate and can't become the next rugged coast or the next ocean legacy. So instead, we've moved to kind of just having our standard collaborative cleanups throughout the year to stand as an example for recreationists to follow, to show how you can have those positive impacts whenever you're out recreating on the coast. And the next few slides will go over what those events throughout the year are and dive into those a bit deeper. We also have site condition reporting, which we'll also talk about much deeper later on. But essentially that allows recreationists to report back to us what they're seeing on the coast and lets us share with relevant land managers to have action actually taken based on what recreationists are reporting to us. And B, gives them a bit of autonomy to actually take action as well. There's kind of pieces through the site condition report that promote actual actions being taken while you're out on the coast. We also have our coastal caretaker program, which is kind of a springboard off of site condition reporting, and is a group of basically dedicated volunteers that whenever they're out on the coast, are committed to improving sites they visit, committed to submitting site condition reports, maybe educating people they meet on their travels and that sort of thing. And then we have public education as well. So over the past few years, we've developed a Marine Trails Code of Conduct, which is essentially a leave no trace, but tailored to the BC coast. Obviously, leave no trace is great, but is quite general, can be applied, kind of worldwide. Whereas our code of conduct is specific to BC in terms of our environments, in terms of recreating on the ocean, in terms of the nations that we're visiting, and that sort of thing. So last year, we developed a series of code of conduct videos that are now used pretty broadly across the coast. Again, we'll touch on that later. And then with public education as well, we spend a fair bit of time, especially with middle school and high school level outdoor ed programs, getting those resources out to them, presenting in classrooms and things like that, and ensuring that people are kind of starting off on the right foot whenever they're starting their lives out on the coast in the backcountry. So we can start with our collaborative cleanups. This photo is Gerald Island off of Nanoose Bay. Bit of history on Gerald Island. It used to be a homestead, essentially was abandoned back in the 60s. Their garden took over and the island was completely, and I mean completely, covered by English ivy, which I don't know if you guys are familiar with ivy, but is a crawling vine that takes over and suffocates everything. This photo is from last spring, but essentially ivy went down to the bottom of where the kayaks are before we started this project, had just completely taken over this island. So the BC Parks Foundation acquired Gerald Island and then moved it over into the BC Park system. And BC Parks was hesitant to open it up to recreation because of the large scale environmental degradation that had already taken place. And we're kind of figuring out how they could address that. So we partnered with them to essentially come in with a group of volunteers every April and every either September or October since 2017. And essentially just brute force remove the ivy from the island. The only way to get rid of it is obviously to start. Whenever we began this project, it was pretty demoralizing with the extent. Show some photos here. This is where we started in 2017. Again, that's just the foreshore completely covered in ivy. And then this is again in 2024 last year, that same area, which has now been completely cleared. So we're there for 4 days in the spring, 4 days in the fall, and kind of just pick away at it, usually with a group of around 20 volunteers, which is great. People really love getting involved, especially at the start of the season to kind of launch their paddling season and feel as though they're giving back, which is awesome. So to give you kind of a reference, this is Gerald Island here. Essentially everywhere in between the blue that you see was entirely covered with ivy. The back side of the island was relatively unscathed, but pretty much the entire western side of the island was entirely covered. And in the past, I guess it's now 8 years, had a bit of a pause for COVID, so maybe just 7. We've actually worked it back to just these remaining blue areas. So we're hoping to move into more of a maintenance phase probably in the next few years. Obviously, the areas that have been cleared, we do see some regrowth every year as well, which is why I say maintenance phase and not a finishing of the project. But this is a really great example that we've put on for these volunteers of the effects you can have through recreation. Obviously, we're going and visiting these sites, but trying to share the message that there is a bit of personal responsibility to recreation as well. Like if we want these sites to be public and available, obviously there's BC Parks, there's RSTBC, there's nations, there's guardian programs. But the people that are out there most are us, the recreationists. and showing kind of those examples of how we can make a positive impact. And then we have our Vargas Island marine debris cleanup. So Vargas is just north of Tofino, pretty massive island in a Housat territory. Sees a huge amount of recreation in the summer from hikers and paddlers, as well as water taxi drop-offs as well. And because of its positioning on the west coast of Vancouver Island, sees a pretty huge amount of marine debris wash up. Not to mention that Clayoquot does have a huge amount of aquaculture and fish farms as well. So see quite a bit of fishing debris washing up as well. And essentially we head out every May with a group of volunteers to basically kayak around the island, camp on all the beaches, and clean them up as we go. So this is from this most recent May. We do this collaboratively with BC Marine Trails, with Surfrider Pacific Rim, and Western Canada Marine Response Corporation. So WCMRC, they go by, is essentially an oil spill response corporation out of Port Alberni, other areas in the island as well, but that's the unit that we work with. And they use our cleanups as a training opportunity to essentially send out their teams and landing crafts and remove debris that we pile up throughout our cleans. So this year we removed 3,700 pounds of debris off of Vargas. This is just from one beach. I think we hit almost 15 beaches. So essentially we paddle out with these, they're called super sacks, strapped to the back of our boats, nicely folded up. We collect all of the debris, we sort it into individual categories, and then leave it in these bags for the landing crafts to come and pick up. Then it's dropped off at the Ocean Legacy recycling depot in Ucluelet, where this year 75% was actually recycled and only 25% was sent to landfill. So it was about 2,800 pounds of marine debris that was sent through the recycling side of Ocean Legacy, which is incredible to see. And then we have kind of, again, moving towards less so these feet on the ground events and more so ways for recreationists to be involved whenever they're just out on the coast in their own groups or individually. We have a marine debris drop zone program. So we piloted it last year just in Clayoquot Sound, so in Vargas and on Flores Islands. And essentially they are signs that say, drop your marine debris here, have a bit of background on a Housat territory and essentially the marine debris problem. And as you can see here, this is one we found in Ahus Bay this May, which it looks like a lot, but it was actually a lot more than you see. It was quite deep and layered. So that alone filled 3 of these super sacks, which was great to see that obviously we can go out and do this work, but also if we give recreationists the tools, they're able to do some of that work on their own whenever they're out there. And obviously this probably wasn't, 1 or 2 groups going out and putting in a dedicated effort. It's people that are visiting throughout the year that might pick up 1 item, 1 water bottle. But because there's such high recreational traffic in the area, we definitely do see that accumulation. And then WCMRC again comes out and clears these drop zones every fall before the winter storms come in. So currently we have 5 drop zones in Clayoquot Sound, 4 on Vargas Island, and 1 on Flores. We install those collaboratively with BC Parks and the Housat Nation. And we are looking to expand the drop zone program across the west coast of Vancouver Island, essentially areas that see high recreational traffic as well as high marine debris accumulation. Currently, we're working with Hawaii, Ichuckalset, and Seychelles nations in Barkley Sound to potentially put drop zones in the Deer Group, and just finalized our project with Quatsino Nation and Ocean Legacy up in Quatsino Sound. And hopefully next week, we'll be getting drop zones in 3 drop zones at Cape Palmerston Rec Site, and Grant Bay up in Quatsino. And that'll be removed jointly with Ocean Legacy. So it's really great to come together as multiple organizations. Well, it's just a sign. These projects are collaborative, typically between us, between parks, between the relevant nation, and then a removal partner as well. So a lot of collaboration going on. And what I really like about the drop zone program is, even though it's a lot of work to get them started, it actually removes or lowers everybody's workload. For example, Ocean Legacy can show up at a beach, and opposed to having crews clean up the beach, oftentimes it's already done, and then you kind of just have to do the removal piece. Similarly, for nations, when their guardian teams might have to be paying attention to marine debris and a lot of other things going on in the territory, can kind of cover that piece as well. So great to see this collaborative work that can A, benefit everybody involved, B, reduce workload, and C, let recreationists get involved. This project kind of began as I, with some friends, did a big trip down the west coast of Vancouver Island in 2023. And the whole way along, we'd be camping on beaches and being like, there's marine debris everywhere. would love to pilot, would love to collect it, but really what's the point? And then kind of had that light bulb moment of, well, what if we actually put in infrastructure to make that possible, and allow for recreationists to make that difference if they're out on the coast. And that's the empty drop zone after our make clean. So this is our locations in Clayoquot Sound, just north of Tofino. These are the locations going in North Island, just north of Quatsino Sound, and then in the Deer Group. So hopefully we'll have a total of 11 by the end of the summer. Yeah, and then on that note, we're working on a marine debris layer on our map to make this a bit more collaborative between other organizations, but we'll touch on that whenever we do our site condition reporting section of the presentation. And yeah, for the Marine Trails Code of Conduct, last summer we put in some work to get some professionally filmed videos, A, summarizing the entire code, and then B, one for each tenet of the code as well. So the most prominent place that these are shared is through rental outfitters across the coast. So we've worked with about 15 now, most of the largest rental outfitters for kayaking on Vancouver Island and the mainland, and have worked to have these videos integrated in their rental process. So whether that's sent out in a confirmation email or during the waiver process, shown to clients before they head out on the water, but really working to kind of start from the bottom up, recognizing, you know, who typically knows the least whenever they're out there, which is new kayakers, which is renters, as opposed to those that might own their own gear and, you know, have been recreating on the coast for their entire lives. Also working with gear shops that are, you know, selling to people for the first time and that sort of thing. So working in that way, and then also sharing a lot of resources with outdoor ed programs in schools across the province, which we'll touch on in a second. But for now, we'll just play this to give you guys an idea of the code. Is the audio sending over to you guys? No, okay. It's likely in the share settings. Advanced sharing options. Still no audio?
Can't hear the audio, Sam, but I don't know. That's
Oh, share sound. There we go.
Is beautiful marine environments, ensuring their preservation and protection for future generations. Spanning over 25,000 kilometers of coastline, the BC Marine Trails Network includes over 1,400 launch sites, campsites, and more. As stewards of this network, it is our collective responsibility to engage with these natural spaces sustainably, showing respect for both the environment and fellow users. When recreating along the BC coast, you are visiting the traditional territories of one or more of 74 coastal First Nations. Disturb nothing, take nothing. The BC Marine Trails is working towards approval for site use within each individual nation. Please refer to the BC Marine Trails map for specific camping and management directives for each nation. Research the specific territories you will be visiting. Pay permitting fees if required. Camp at allowable locations. Respect any additional management directives. Stay to the campsite area on established trails to avoid trampling sensitive ecosystems. Keep sites in an unaltered natural state with the smallest human footprint possible. If no established camping area exists at a site, choose a durable surface such as a beach, rock with no moss or lichen, or areas of the forest with little ground cover. When camping in groups, avoid a sprawling camp. Many sites have toilets available. Check the camp comments on the BC Marine Trails map before heading out. Backcountry toilets are user-maintained. Treat them with respect. When toilets are unavailable, best practice is to dispose of all human waste below the high tide line, ensuring the tidal flush sweeps it out to sea. Alternatively, where shellfish may be contaminated, pack out human waste or discharge in deeper waters. Do not dig cat holes in the upland. Heavily used wreck sites can accumulate human wastes too quickly for decomposition. Maintain regulated distance from marine mammals and avoid disturbing wildlife. If you cause an animal to move, you are likely too close. Ensure the kitchen area is away from tent sites and keep your camp clear of other animal attractants like scented products. Many sites provide bear caches for easy attractant storage. Check the camp comments on the BC Marine Trails map before heading out. In their absence, store attractants in kayak hatches or bear hangs. Gray water is wastewater from cooking and cleaning at camp. The best practice is to use the lowest intertidal marine area for gray water disposal. Avoid disposing of gray water near streams or lakes. Pack out solid waste and minimize soap use. Ensure soaps are biodegradable and camp-friendly. Before you embark on your adventure, it's essential to consult the most recent updates from the BC Wildfire Service and comply with any fire bans in effect. Avoid using rocks to construct fire rings, as they can damage sensitive ecosystems and First Nations cultural values. Instead, position your campfire below the current high tide line, where the ocean can naturally wash away the impact, and away from wildfire risk. Use only small pieces of driftwood and ensure that they burn completely to white ash. Refrain from taking wood from the upland areas. Leave no evidence of your campfire when you depart. Leave nothing behind after your visit. Leave a site in its natural state and modify nothing. Pack it in, pack it out, including all trash, food spills and scraps, even if biodegradable. Dismantle any human-made structures, including driftwood kitchens and wind blocks. Pack out marine debris on shorter trips or when hatch space is available. Pile larger collected debris above the highest high tide line to allow for future pickup. We believe that our community can have a significant impact. Submitting site condition reports and reporting areas of significant marine debris allows BC Marine Trails to keep our site map up to date and coordinate cleanups. Check out the reporting section of our website or take a step further and become a BC Marine Trails coastal caretaker.
Yeah, so that is the long full version of the code of conduct. We also have, again, kind of the shorter piece by piece videos, and then a shorter, just under 2-minute video. That is the one shared with rental outfitters. How do I get to the start on the next slide? So beyond our videos, we also have a whole host of resources for various uses. We have our code of conduct downloads, which includes just a quick, short kind of bullet point pocket version, the long form with kind of the rationale behind each of the 7 tenets as well. And in here, links to all of the videos. So that's more kind of the public-facing use of the code. And then for education, we have our code of conduct modules as well. So we have an outdoor education activity booklet that has kind of a selection of different classroom activities for teachers to choose from. We also have more formal modules with full readings, the videos, and then quizzes as well, again, for use in the classroom. So it's been really great to see teachers pick this up. It's been used in probably about 20 classrooms province-wide as of this year. I presented to about 8 classrooms, South Island near Victoria, in the spring, which obviously not to say that this is necessarily better than Leave No Trace, but really just starting that conversation with people of why is it that we do what we do, like actually getting people to look at their environment, look at the context before deciding their actions, and not just kind of sticking to one strict code of ethics. So that is our code of conduct. And a lot of what we do, again, kind of centers around site condition reporting. So again, leave the presentation here and go check that out on our site. Site condition reporting, I just opened up the browser version, but you can also download an app on your phone that allows you to do it directly in the field. The great thing about the app as well is, say you're on a trip without service for 2 weeks, even if you submit site condition reports at each site as you go along, it'll automatically upload to us as soon as you're back in service or back in Wi-Fi. So super easy for users to make use of that as well. So you can throw in your site name. We also ask users to double up the site name with the location as well. Just we get a lot of people don't always know what site they're at, so having that duplication is great. Let's drop the pin there for this. We get the date of the site visit, and we've changed our site condition reporting a lot in the past year. Before it was very targeted questions. Now we're just leaving it much more open-ended to kind of see what people think is important to send back to us. So mostly our main thing is we have over 1,500 sites. We're not there all the time. BC Parks is not there all the time. The nation is not there all the time. Like people are often surprised that a lot of these coastal sites, land managers are able to make it to a site maybe twice in a season if they're lucky. So this report really allows BC Parks, nations, again, any land manager to really prioritize the work that is needed in their territory. So here we ask, are site descriptions and photos accurate, up to date? If not, like what are we displaying on our map that is no longer correct? Because again, all of our information is user sourced as well. Importantly, are there any hazards present at the site? Maybe a big winter storm has significantly changed the landing. Maybe there's a danger tree, a tree down on the landing, whatever it might be. A big one for us is freshwater present as well. Getting reports on that and sharing that back to the community, especially as you might have a freshwater stream in April and June, but then not in September. Really important for people as they're planning their trips to see those site condition reports and what is currently happening at the site. And then in terms of site stewardship, there's just some stats we collect as well to share with land managers to see what recreationists are actually getting up to in territory. So just collecting information on basic site maintenance, trail clipping, that sort of thing. And a really big part of the site condition report these days is surrounding marine debris. So great to know when people pack out debris. They usually send us a photo of what they pack out as well. But mostly beyond these actual physical marine debris drop zones are moving to kind of pushing a culture where that is just happening more virtually as well, where folks can pile marine debris above the high tide line, send us a site condition report, and then that will be shared on our upcoming marine debris layer on our map, which I can go over in a second here. But essentially what this does is allows for us to take all this information and send it back to the organizations that are actually out removing debris from the coast. So Ocean Legacy, Rugged Coast, Living Ocean Society. And what we'll do is engage with them at the start of their season in the winter and early spring and say, hey, where are you guys headed? What's kind of the extent of your cleans this summer? And we'll communicate that directly back with our users as well. For example, this spring, Living Ocean Society knew that they were going to have helicopters in the Cape Scott kind of Quatsino region at the end of June. So we sent that out to our members and all of our users saying, if you are in this region before the end of June, pile debris, send us a report. And there actually will be landing crafts and helicopters there to remove it. And just really sharing those stories of instances where debris has been removed. It's not going to happen tomorrow or the next week, or maybe even that season. But a great story that I like to share is our current president of the organization was on the Heshquet Peninsula in 2022, I think, and was storm stayed there and piled a huge amount of debris above the high tide line. And then 2 full years later, I got a call from Rugged Coast, and they were like, we're out on the boat today. We're near the Heshquet Peninsula. Is there anything you want us to grab? I was like, yes, absolutely. Sent them all the photos, and they went and removed a huge amount of debris that had been piled by recreationists, again, a full 2 years prior. So it's really just acting as that middleman, like recognizing that we have over 40,000 visits to our map every summer, recognizing the high usage there and making those connections between the recreationists and all of the other organizations doing great work out on the coast. There's a few other questions that aren't more kind of BCMT relevant, but what I'll do is go back to our map and share with you just this year. We launched a new map back in January. Before, site condition reports were all internal and available only to us and then the land managers we share them with. But in the most recent edition, we're making site condition reports live to our members as well. So right now there's only about 100 live on the map because essentially the ones displayed are only submitted this season. But all these orange pins are site condition reports. So if you click on them as a user, you're actually able to see what is being reported out there and also seeing all photos submitted as well. So it's a huge additional resource for our users, our members, and their trip planning and getting the most up-to-date information for their trips. And beyond that, in the next month or so, we're hoping to launch a very similar layer that centers just around marine debris, so that we can share that directly with the public, or maybe boaters, Good Samaritans that might want to act on that information. see photos of piles. More so for users as well, if they know that on Ahus Bay, on Vargas, bad example because there's an actual drop zone there, but if they're planning their trip and see that there's an existing drop zone, they're able to add to that pile, send in a new report as well, and have those efforts kind of consolidated, similar to a physical drop zone as well. And then similarly, on the back end of that, for all of the reports of debris, we'll be able to track when it was reported, if we sent that information over to a land manager, over to a cleanup organization, if that debris was eventually removed, and have all of that tracked on the back end. And then we'll kind of have like a green light, red light system where current debris is red, debris that's been picked up turns green so that it's still visible, but shows that it's been removed as well. So kind of having the whole ecosystem existing on the map for people to A, actually participate, but B, I'm a huge believer that people are much more excited and interested in participating if they're actually seeing the results of not only what they put out, but what the whole community is putting out as well. And showing like, hey, not only am I doing that, but Darwin's doing it as well, and so is Evan, and kind of a bit of peer pressure as well goes a long way. So back to the presentation. Yeah, that is our site condition reporting. And yeah, that's all I have for you guys today in terms of our stewardship programming. Would love to answer any questions that anybody might have, or discuss kind of how any of those programs could be promoted through your organization.